All right, all right, all right. Getting ready to take off. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome all. It is Friday. Yay! I was about to say it's a Wednesday, but today is Friday, and it is the best day of the whole absolute best day of the week. I don't know why. I'm still working, but I'm just happy because I don't have to work tomorrow. Come on in, come on in. As you're entering the room, please do me a favor and just drop where you're joining us from in the chat. And you can put, your city, your state, that kind of stuff. Where are you coming from? Where are you joining us from? I'm in Chicago, and it is finally nice outside. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. It's the Chicago's weather is not good weather because, hey Stacy, you've been suffering like me. Hi Ellen, Ellery. That's different. Hi Ellery. Welcome, welcome. Decatur. Okay, we got people in the cold that's suffering like me. I love it. Misery loves company.
It's
I'm
raining
just
here.
really good. It's rainy. Where
Yeah,
are you, Kayla?
Western Massachusetts.
Woohoo! Is it raining there? It was raining here like all last week when my sister was in town, and the day after she left, sunshine, beautiful, warm. It was actually hot. I was like, whoa, this is nice. Welcome, guys. Still cold here, but I think that's gonna warm up tomorrow. Indiana is just like Chicago with crappy weather. But welcome, guys. I'm glad you guys are here. This is welcome to our empowering, I can't say empowering, enhancing and empowering conversations for positive change. We're super excited because we like to bring you once a month, we like to bring you a fantastic conversation where we are learning together, growing together, and just being empowered to make a difference. And Carolyn Richards, I am so sorry that you are in Alaska. Is that where you want to be? With the snow. But guys, welcome to today's webinar. I'm super excited you guys are here with us. And we have a great, great, great presenter for you guys today. I'm hoping that you know you're going to take away some really good nuggets. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. So, for those of you guys who do not know, if you're new here, this is how we engage during our webinars. If you're ready to speak, please raise your hand. I didn't get a chance to say this, Kayla, but sometimes we have people who want to talk and they want to come on camera to talk. So we'll allow them to do so if you're okay with that. As you're typing your comments, make sure that little caret is pushed so it says it's going to everybody. Otherwise, it'll just come to presenters and we may not be able to address that. And then please be patient with us. Sometimes when conversations get really good, it can take off and we don't want to miss anybody, but sometimes it happens. So just be patient with us and we'll come right back to you. Okay. Thank you guys. Next. In our webinars, we have something called agreements. This is much like what we have in our cafe agreements. We want to create a emotionally safe space as much as possible. We know that emotional safety looks different for each person. And we also want to encourage you to be brave in this space. So we want you to speak from your own experience by using I statements when you have to share. Follow the golden rule. This is where we take all of our cafe agreements and wrap them in a nice bow and put them here. So it's like not giving advice and no judgment because you can get that from social media. We're not going to have it here. Okay. So follow the golden rule. And then full presence, please no multitasking, except this is lunch. So, if you're eating, feel free to eat if you're not. Enjoy your lunch with us because it's lunchtime. And if you need a minute, take a minute. Let me just go back to that multitasking. Yes, we want you to eat lunch, but this is really not the time to be answering emails and playing Candy Crush and all that great stuff because then you're going to miss something. And the presenter today is great. You don't want to miss this. If you need a minute, take a minute. If something gets you a little, uh, gets you a little emotional or you feel a little overwhelmed, step away and then come back when you're ready. If you agree to these agreements, I need you to put I agree in the chat. It is the only way for us to move forward for today. Thank you, Stephanie. She's on top of it. Yes. I agree. I agree. I agree. I only have like a 4 in here, and there's 25 people. So, yay! I love it. Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you guys. All right, let's keep moving. Hi, Dominique.
Hello, it's nice to be here. Hello, everybody.
So, today we are having a fantastic training provided by our friends and allies in recovery. I'm going to tell you how I met these wonderful women. We were at a conference, and the conference wasn't we were working in the vendor section, and there weren't a lot of people in the vendor section. And so we had nothing to do except harass each other. And we had these great conversations the entire day. And I was there with Pam, who is a parent leader and a rep for Be Strong Families. And she says, "You got to meet these people. And you got to meet Kayla and Dominique." And I had some great conversations. So we ended up connecting in the conference. We talked for most of the conference. I think we probably spent about an hour just chatting it up. And every day we were chatting it up afterwards. But in hearing what they do in recovery, I knew that they would be a fantastic partner and the presenter for our Be Strong families for you guys. So I invited them to come and do a webinar. And I think it's more of a training. Yes.
Both.
And both. Okay. It's both. But I want you to sit back. I'm going to let them, Kayla and Dominique, I'm going to let them introduce themselves and then get ready for a fantastic training today. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
ladies, for being here.
you.
I'm excited and looking forward.
Thank you, Sarita. Dominique, do you want to start by introducing yourself, and then I'll introduce myself and do what I do?
All right, I'm going to make sure my name appears. Dominique Simone Levine, and hello, everybody. I started Allies in Recovery in 2003. We just had our 21st year. And what we do is we work with the families of people that have somebody they love who's struggling with addiction. And what we are going to hear today is Kayla, mostly, and a little bit from me. We're going to give you an overview of the program and how we come to have a program that serves just the family. We never see the person with addiction. Keep that in mind as Kayla's talking. And one that has huge success in a very narrow part of the world, which is sort of private care, master level clinicians, private pay, that sort of area. It's a very expensive approach if you're going to pay a private practitioner to teach it to you. And what we did in 2012, we put the whole thing online. And so we teach it, we answer questions, we podcast, we blog, we have all the modules. So you have the entire craft approach. We're going to talk a lot about craft today, which is the approach we use at Allies. And it's all there at your fingertips. So Kayla, with that, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay, and just very briefly about me, I've been a clinician for many, many years. I started out at a methadone program in 1983, so God help us all. But I've been in outpatient settings. I mostly spent most of my career working with the people who are dealing with substance use issues, and probably although I was trained in craft, but about 5 years ago, I actually lost one of my clients, and I realized how devastated his family was. And that's when I called Dominique and I said to her, I need to start a group for the family members. And so I do a group on Wednesday nights, and that's grown into training and training facilitators and doing the podcast and trying to get the program now. Our big mission right now is to actually make it more welcoming and adaptable in BIPAC communities and train facilitators from those communities. So that's our next push. But right now we're in the process of developing that program. So I'm going to describe what we do, and feel free to ask questions. I would love to get through what the toolbox is before we ask a lot of the questions, and then I am absolutely open to any questions that you may have. Okay, so shall we go to the slides? As you know, the topic of this is positively impacting substance use disorder through training and empowering the family, which is a very different model than what exists in the world today. Usually, almost all of the programs only work with substance abusers and not the family members. So this is a very different shift. We can go to the next one. So there's the loved one, which we define as the person who's using the substances. And then let's do the next one. That person has access to various programs, some better than others, some easier to get into than others. But as you could see, there's sober houses, there's case management, intensive outpatient, drug court, sponsors, AA, therapists, in residential programs and outpatient programs. So all of the programs are targeted for the person who's using substances or has the problem with substances. Let's go to the next one. And in that model, the families are completely left out. And that is the light, fluffy version of it, because in reality, what actually happens is the family members are, in my experience, are actually looked down upon as the enablers and a big part of the problem and the cause of the problem and obstacles to people getting the help that they need. There's a lot of reasons for that, which we will not go into, but that is, as a person who was in the system, that was absolutely how I saw things. It's like that we saw the family members as the doormats, as the people that were being taken advantage of, as we weren't able to help them, and they were part of the problem more than part of the solution. So that is the old model. Let's go to the next one. And so this is basically, that's what this slide says, is that if family members try to engage with the programs, they actually are told that they cannot be spoken to due to confidentiality and HIPAA, and also that it basically, I know in my case, it was like, oh, you're trying to take care of that person instead of letting them do the work themselves. So let's go to the next one. Meanwhile, through CRAFT and allies, what we have discovered is that the family is an incredibly untapped resource in actually battling substance use disorder. Because if you leave out the access and support, families are left to their own devices. And if you think about the role of the family in almost all of our lives, it's like those are the people that no matter what you do, they're still thinking about you, they're still caring about you, they're still trying to have a relationship with you with whatever inadequate skills they may or may not have. But a lot of times when programs, especially residential programs, like, okay, you're done with the residential program, the assumption is that you're going to move back in with your family, whether it's your partner, whether it's your parents, whether it's a sibling. The assumption of the treatment is that you're going to go back there, but there is absolutely no connection between you being in treatment and your family. It's like this massive gap, and then you're thrown back in to be with your family who actually doesn't have any tools. They're just doing the same thing that they've always done. Maybe they'll go to Al-Anon, but Al-Anon deals with what is, like, what are you dealing with? But it doesn't tell you how to actually change the relationship with the person that is dealing with the substances. And that's what we do. We have developed tools and platforms to help families take this community reinforcement and family training model and actually apply it, use it and practice it and learn it and make mistakes with it. And what's beautiful about being online, I think we need to go to the next slide, because it probably talks about this. So it's Bob Myers originally developed the version of CRAFT that was very black and white. It was you're either sober or abstinent, or using. There was never a mention of harm reduction. So there was no gray in between. It was all either or. So what we've discovered is that when we look at people dealing with recovery issues, there is a tremendous amount of gray between abstinent and active use. So we look at harm reduction, which is to reward lower, less dangerous use and efforts to moderate, all while keeping a connection with the loved one. The connection is the prime directive of the work that we do, because if you have connection, then there's hope, then there's possibilities for that person being interested in treatment, staying in treatment. And when they leave treatment, there's a better chance that they go back to treatment if you hold the connection. And what we're really working on is, how do you have connection with somebody who is behaving in a way that you feel tortured by? Okay. And that's the work that we do. It's not like, oh, this is great, I love you no matter what. There's a lot of work there's a lot of subtleties that need to be taught. And we look at things in a gray way, which is not a bad thing. It's more like it's complicated. And so what we look at is at the complexity and how to work through and live with the complexity of this without losing hope, without giving up, without sacrificing yourself to the needs of this other person. Let's go to the next slide. So the actual alliesinrecovery.net, I'm going to say it that 1,000 times, which you could get online, has e-learning modules, which teaches all the things that we're talking about. We also have blogs. We have a podcast called Coming Up for Air. We have support groups. We have groups that are actually training in skills groups. And then we have individual support occasionally. It's not mostly what we do, but there's possibilities for that. And this is research-based contact that's developed and delivered by a team with decades of experience. And because it's online, people have access to it 24/7. And also, there is no start and end date. People could stay in this for years and years and years, because we don't see it. The original model was a 12-week model, and we've realized that this is a much longer process, that even if your loved one goes into treatment, there's no guarantee that that's the end of the story. Most likely, it is the beginning of a story. And we hold you through all of the shifts in the story so that you can move forward in this process. Next slide. And I just want to acknowledge I'm talking really fast because I want to get to the question and answers. So the universals that we teach are, it's essential that you basically slow things down so that you can begin to notice the daily patterns of your loved one and their addiction, theirs and yours. We do not see this as that's the problem, that your loved one is the problem and you're the solution. We see this as you're basically working on creating a team so that both you and your loved one start to work together, and you are not in charge of the team. You are a participant in the team, and you have to look at what role you have in encouraging that person to shift. So you need to know and basically what happens is we realize that most of the time when you're looking at family members, they're acting unconsciously. They're acting with this automatic reactive behavior, and they don't even know what they're doing because nobody has given them an opportunity to slow down and look. This is what we're asking people to slow down and do, so that you can understand what you're seeing and feeling around the addiction. How is this affecting you? What's happening from your end of it? How are you reacting? What is this trigger for you? And it's not that we're doing this in the same way you would do in therapy, but you need to start having self-awareness so that you then have control over your choices and your behaviors, as opposed to just reacting. So it's really about increasing people's awareness. And you need to really start to really slow things down so that you can really kind of get a sense, is your loved one using or not using? Are they limiting their use? Are they able to function? You want to start watching all of this, but you cannot watch that if you're in a heightened state of reactivity. And so we want people to start really kind of observing things in a different way, having more information about what they're looking at, and also really looking at behavior more than assumptions. And a massive aspect of what we do is behavioral, which is we teach people to reward the loved one in moments where they really believe that there's either no use or limited use. So you're basically positively rewarding good behavior, and their positive behavior. But we also do the removing of the rewards, which is not you're out. We don't make big proclamations. It's more this very subtle, quiet stepping back, removing yourself and allowing natural consequence when you know that people are using, so that you're not doing as much intervention as most people naturally try to do on a daily basis. Did you go to the program? Did you do it? Nope. It's more like notice what you're seeing and then reward the positive and step away and go quiet with the negative. Which actually increases the safety, which we'll get to. But what happens is that we also teach effective communication, incredibly active listening, and really a focus on creating the safety and connection. And we really work with the tools that allows for that, that allow for that, as opposed to just, you need to have connection. Nobody knows what that means, but that's what we spend a ton of time teaching people, and also having people figure out what that actually means in their own lives. It's a very personalized program. We don't have prescriptions that we give people, because this is going to be different for every single human being and every family system that comes in. They have their own ways of being, and you know what the rewards are for your loved one. It's not a generic thing. And the other thing that's missing with lots of other programs is that we're looking at the family members to actually focus on self-care, which includes boundaries, good communication, and radical acceptance. Because if you're not accepting what's actually happening, then you're basically building up all of this reactivity in your nervous system, which does not allow you to respond well. So self-care is one of the first things that you have to do with this, because without it, nothing else happens. If you're reactive, you cannot do any of this. And we also, with, like, as in all models, you have to create safety emotionally and physically for yourself to be able to move forward. And also that also sometimes involves, I know in our population here, we look a lot at, there's so much focus on how do you keep your loved one from killing themselves or harming themselves or harming other people, which you have some influence over, but not fully. So you have to start with yourself emotionally and physically, because that is what you can control. And we encourage everybody to engage in recovery and wellness and healing activities for themselves. And of course, as you do that, it allows you to be more influential in helping your loved one do more of that themselves, because you're not looking at them to make you feel better. You're looking at yourself. Okay, next slide. I'm going to breathe now. Okay, so here's the skills in the toolbox. I know I'm talking really fast, but we will go back over these things. So, as I've said several times, a key here is having self-awareness. Yourself. You need to be aware what's happening inside of your system. What terrible thoughts are you having? How are you catastrophizing? How is this moment reminding you of the past? And how does that get you activated so that you're actually coming across in a very reactive way? And without that, you can't reduce it. You can't reduce reactivity unless you can acknowledge it and then find ways to basically calm your system down. And part of that is this, what we call radical acceptance, which is accepting things the way they are. You cannot control everything in your life other than yourself. And so if you could start accepting what's actually going on with your loved one, and even though it feels like they're going to die, you're going to die, everybody's going to die, then without the acceptance, you lose control. The acceptance gives you actually a way of calming your system down so that you could actually do things more effectively. The lack of acceptance makes you feel crazy. And so we really, really have to drill down on that, which goes back to control versus influence. We believe in influence and not control. Control is actively trying to make something happen that you think is the right answer. And influence is shifting the dynamic that you have with this person so that when they're interested, they will come to you and they will ask questions. Influence is about you working on shifting how you're behaving so that you're actually a role model. Influence is being more interested and open to what that other person is thinking. So when they are ready to make a change, you're listening to them and communicating in a very different way. We also teach very clearly how to stay safe in very possibly damaging and unsafe situations. So it's a major priority for many of our families, because the other thing is that often there's not only the substance use, but dual diagnosis. And so, it's a thin line, but we work with dual diagnosis. Most of the loved ones have some kind of dual diagnosis where there's a mental health issue and the substance use. We teach people how to step forward and when to step out, which is those rewards, the positive and negative rewards, which is that use of rewards. The other thing is the use of rewards is that when we are stepping in, we're looking at microscopic rewards. We're not looking at, oh, I'm going to pay for your car, or I'm going to buy you whatever, something big. It's more like, let's go for coffee, or I made you this beautiful meal, or you go in for a conversation, or you remember what that person used to like and you encourage them to do that. And you could do it with them. You also allow for natural consequences, which means not intervening to protect that person and to have this incredible safety net under them so they do not experience the consequences of their use. There's so many parents that we work with that are terrified that their loved one is going to go to jail, and they will do anything to keep them out of jail. And truthfully, sometimes the person needs the safety of the bars to keep them from killing themselves, or it just is a way for a person to reset. I'm not saying that jail is a good thing, but sometimes being in drug court is a good thing, so that there's other people who have the kind of role that you've taken, which is to intervene and to have and to put outside consequences on that person. We are very strongly into reflective listening and positive communication. And I'm pretty sure most people know about that, so I won't go into it. But basically what we're doing is positive communication is that you're not going into hopelessness, and you're not going into telling people what to do, and you're not giving advice, but that you're listening enough so that you're encouraging the person and you're listening for what they might want. And we're focused in that way. We also really focus on stopping negative talk, which is the negative talk that goes on in our heads, but also the negative talk that we impose on the other person, and the judgment that we have and the criticism that we have, because nobody responds well to judgment and criticism. So this is part of the connection. And the more you practice this, the more people who actually have not been communicating with you, you become more attractive to them, and they will come to you more than they would have in the past. We also are very strong with creating and maintaining boundaries, which basically means we discuss what are boundaries that you actually are able and willing to actually go through with. Because if you establish a boundary that you're not going to actually do, then you have basically taken your power away, and nobody believes you, because it basically, you put yourself in a position of not having any credibility if you're going to put out a boundary that you're not going to follow up. So we talk a lot about any boundary that you do discuss with that person has to be something that you're actually willing to follow through with. And how do you do that? So none of this is easy, but we engage in the process of getting to these points with folks. It's not just that we assume people are even going to know what that looks like or means. So a lot of what we do is that conversation, and it's certainly what we focus on in the groups. So here's the managing expectations, and this managing the erosion versus tsunami is my belief system, okay? Which is that people think, like the original model, 12 weeks, you come in, you do this work, and your person's in treatment, and everything's done, it's over, end of story. Now, anybody who has a loved one or who is a treatment professional knows that this is not at all true. Excuse me. So I use the beach analogy. This beautiful sandy beach was not created by a tsunami. It did not happen in 10 seconds. I'm going to mute myself and cough. It's basically the waves lap on the shore and they move out. It starts with a boulder, And slowly but surely, over time, things change. And you need to have the confidence that if you stick with this process, it will change. You will change, the dynamic will change, and that allows your loved one the process that they need to change, which is slow. Because there are very few people that are like, okay, I decided I'm not using anymore, and it's the end of the story. That's not the case. They stop using, something happens, they return to use, and we need to be able to actually allow the person the dignity to do that, to make the changes, to figure out why they want to shift, to get the tools that they need, to scaffold them in a way so that they can change in their way and their time. And we need to actually respect that process and actually trust it and believe in them and believe in their power and believe that they have what it takes, even if they're behaving badly, because everybody's got it. It's just that there's a good chance that they've given up on themselves. And we need to get, that's why the positive part of this is so important, so that they could feel better about the microscopic things that they are doing well. And the more we point that out, the more that they can start to regain the trust of themselves. So we say it by, oh wait, we need to go back for a second. I know it sounds like I talked about all of that. Can we just go back to the last slide? Because I don't think I finished it. So we then we basically say, give your loved one the dignity of their own process. It requires patience and trust. You have to take care of yourself for this, or you're going to be useless. And when we talk about wishes and dips, it's when the person approaches you and says things like, I'm tired of this. I wish my life was better. I wish I was something else. Those are the moments when what we do is we work on, in the meantime, you creating a list of treatment resources for this person. And when we say treatment, it could be anything. It could be going to church. It could be having a community that they're a part of. It could be 12-step meetings. It could be inpatient treatment. It could be recovery coaches. It could be anything. But you're going to make lists of all these things so that they have much more access to treatment when they're interested, and you're going to have it all ready, and you're not going to make recommendations, but you're going to do all the clearing work to find out about insurance and access and what their treatment does. So then when, instead of sitting there thinking that you're not doing anything and you're just waiting, you have this chore to do, which is get that list ready. And you are not going to give it to that person until there's a wish or a dip. And then you could say, oh, I have these resources. If you're interested, let me know if you're interested. Not, you need to go to treatment. That does not work. And that is not the model that we have. Now we can go to the next slide. All right. So I guess this is really, you could see the model has the family members included in the entire system. Unfortunately, this is the dream, but this is our way of getting closer to that. So basically what we have seen, this is not just research. This is our on the hands watching people do the work over time, that the family members get to be a positive influence in their loved ones seeking treatment. We get to have that influence. We can support that person through the treatment process, including when they have setbacks. We actually can role model and create an environment where healing and change is part of the culture of the family, of our relationship with this person. And that yeah, it does feel like grace. And that the most important thing that we teach is that the connection is the key in the treatment process. The research has been done. What's missing with people with substance abuse is they feel disconnected. They feel like they're floating out in the world. They feel like they don't belong. And so as a family member, you get to be the one that actually creates this connection, which is the beginning of the healing process. You model that with them, and they don't feel like they're so ashamed and they're so upset about all of their behavior that they have no right to meet with you. They have no right to have relationship, that they don't deserve it. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so this is Now, I'm going to stop us here, and I know, Dominique, this is your favorite part, but basically, what I want to do is also open it up to questions and answers because we don't have a lot of time and we actually have very little time. So I want to make sure we get that. But basically, if you look at the numbers, that the family members have reduced their anxiety, worry, and anger, that Allies in Recovery was helpful in getting their loved one to accept care, and that it's also helpful in reducing their loved one's use of drugs and alcohol, which is amazing. Okay, because where else could you say that? It's like we are giving families the power to have this positive impact on their loved ones by influencing them, connecting, and changing the dynamic in the relationship. So Dominique, if there's anything that you want to say, or this is the time for question and answers.
Oh, I think you did so well. Thanks, Kayla. I think let's take some questions.
Yeah, and people want to see the slides. This is going to be up on YouTube too. And so I can't see the chat, but okay.
I'm following it.
All right. So here's your chance. You get to be on YouTube.
I just want to say this made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. It feels like grace, but it's my favorite word in the whole wide world. But this feels like grace. I love that it is positive and affirming and strength based, and it isn't condemning people to hell, and making it worse, because that's what you are. So right. I was listening and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like that is what is usually done. And that's what's done in every situation when people are struggling with anything. There's so much shame and, they get beat up. There's so much shame and condemnation and, just reactive stuff. And I love that this has this feeling of you're able to support your loved one in a strength-based way. And it really made me feel like a warm hug. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this. I love that they're on loving on people as they go through addiction, and this love doesn't look like a beat up on. Also, I was thinking how I love the in the beginning where you're showing the family on the outside, because that also happens in so many spaces when we're focused on the person who needs help. Is one of the same reasons why I ended up coming to work with Be Strong Families, was because everybody focused on the child. Everybody focuses on the kids and the youth. And I'm like, but who's focusing on the parents? Who's helping the parents? That's their support system when they go back home. So, and it was, I don't know, it was interesting to see that that happens everywhere, not just in the space I'm in, but everywhere. We focus on the person who needs help and we forget about the people who need to support them. They have to go back to those same families, who are, if they're armed with the right tools, then they can better effectively support their loved ones. So yeah, this is on all cylinders. I'm like, oh my gosh, this was so good. Thank you guys.
Well,
Any questions, guys?
yeah, any questions? Because if there's no questions, what I would like to do is tell some of the stories if you're interested.
Yeah. Jessica said
Here comes something in the chat. I learned about family-based therapy when my oldest was diagnosed with anorexia. I'm so glad a similar approach is being used for addiction now. Well, that's interesting because we're getting a lot of families with anorexia. We're able to help them, and they're able to help their loved ones get treated for alcohol and drugs. And then what happens when they start to abstain and get healthy from that? Up comes the eating disorder, which is so typically old and from a long time back. So I would love to learn about family-based therapy for anorexia or eating disorders as well. And we have some families now coming that their adult children primarily now there's alcohol and drugs in the mixture, but the anorexia or the bulimia is almost the priority, or is the priority.
Right, and
there's another question. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say Miriam asked, is there training for individuals slash organizations?
What's happening is that okay, you mean to actually do the model? What's happening at this point is that, like I was telling Sarita, we're a very small organization. And so literally there's two of us that are doing the groups and facilitating right now the groups.
Mhm.
And what's happening is that that we, like, I do a group on Wednesday nights, and I just want to be clear about this. If somebody came in and said to that group and said my kid is anorexic, it would not be a good fit. They could use the modules, but we really are focused on substance use. So I just want to be clear about that, because I don't want to bloody the waters, because there's people that want to come in for many, many reasons. This model works, but in terms of the groups, it's like it's very specifically targeted to the substance use issues and the dual diagnosis issues. So I just want to be clear, because it would not be a good fit in the groups, and that's what I've told people. But the other thing is that now of course I forgot the question.
The question
Kayla,
was just
let me
if you
jump in,
train.
because
Mhm.
this always becomes a question when we do presentations, which is what we're describing to you is the entire program, and it's online, and we're trying to get governments and counties and education departments and others to purchase the online program, in which all you need for yourself as a family member is to go on this online program and start doing the work, start attending groups, start looking at modules. So what we're looking to do is to train up our ground team. We do everything up in the cloud, everything, and include social media, which is the main way we attract and retain families on our program, right? But we need some on the ground. We need people who are influencers who know enough about the program to do a warm handoff to the online program. We the people we're training in this, as we call allies liaisons. They will exhibit, they'll table, they'll present. Maybe they want to run facilitate a group like Kayla and others do. I'm looking for people from different backgrounds to facilitate different support groups, always focused on craft, always focused on these fundamentals that we teach. So right now we're looking to bring forward a whole cohort of brown and Black people. That's so it's a wide net, many communities, many individuals from a rural area. We've got folks in Georgia, in Mississippi,
Florida.
Florida. So, but we got Rhode Island. We got, we have all kinds of folks. We have some Native American groups in the Tlingit and the Haida. So we need folks that are on the ground who can do an online group, but also do that mediation, that liaison work between the ground and the online program. And that's what we're looking to train. And for that, we are raising money. We got grants in the oven and more grants on the way to try and raise the money to train, stipend, and hire part-time these allies liaisons. We have a cohort that we just finished training. For the majority are white middle-class people. We need diversity. We need this approach called craft that we've been doing for 20 years to really get into these other communities. You need to make it your own. We need to give you what we've learned. You need to adjust, adapt, use it, tell us where we're wrong, tell us what's new, and just basically push this into the rest of the country. It has been not reimbursable by insurance because we're just working with you, the family, and you're not diagnosable. You may be diagnosable, but in this case, you're typically not diagnosable. And so there's no reimbursement from insurance. And it has made the ability to get craft out a very private business, as I said in the beginning. And so that has got to stop. This is too important for it to be so limited.
Well, and as you could see, as I like to say, it's a financial issue at this point because we are ready to rock and roll as soon as the money comes in. And just so you know that the model includes ongoing supervision because this is not easy work and it's actually, not something that we're going to throw you out into the world, you're trained, it's over. It's ongoing supervision because the group that I personally have been working with to train and supervise, they have completely affected the kind of work that I do. This is a collaborative program. We work together. This is not a top-down situation. So the group has completely changed based on the facilitators that I've been working with because their feedback matters. And the group that are facilitating right now are actually parents who have gone through the group and now are trained facilitators. So what we really are looking for is people who have lived experience and then training them to facilitate both the psychoed groups, the educational groups, because it's very tool-based. This is not a traditional support group.
Mhm. I love that. You have a lot of comments coming in. Carolyn wanted to know if there's a new program. She says she and her husband are 28 years clean. She works as with the families as a tribal home visitor, and she has personal family members who are struggling, and she just wants to learn how to be more of a support. You have people asking how to be connected. We have dropped the link in the chat for you guys. We've also dropped Kayla's contact information. And someone said, is this happening in Pennsylvania?
Because
it's,
line is everywhere.
So let me tell you, where it is right now. It's in Massachusetts, hopefully coming soon into Rhode Island. It's in Mississippi, Palm Beach County, soon to be in parts of Georgia and Savannah area of Georgia, and New Mexico. And
But Dominique, define what it means that what the there is.
Well, I put it in the chat for a free membership, which is this online program, the whole motherboard. Everything we've been describing is free to you today by going to alliesinrecovery.net. You want to choose sponsored or free. There'll be what kind of sponsor, just choose other and put in the promo code 01061. That way I know you came from this presentation and you can come on and you can join us. We have served over 4,000 families, the vast majority for nothing. We have had those memberships sponsored by governments and education departments and counties and hospital systems. We need a lot more of that. This is a business model we created when we realized like 12 years into this, there is no money for the family. There is no interest anywhere in having that family intersect with the system. And it's very, even in this age of opioid settlement dollars, extremely little are we able to squeak out and see that we might be able to twist and turn our way into a proposal. So if you have to pay for it out of pocket, it's $159 for 6 months, and then $9 a month thereafter.
And I just want to repeat what Dominique said, because this is the part that gets confusing, because we are completely accessible to anybody, anywhere, literally in the world. It's not exclusive. It's basically that what's happening is that if you want it for free, and that's what Dominique is talking about, those counties and the states are sponsoring it, which makes it completely free. If you don't have the promo code, then what happens is it's the $159 for 6 months and then $9 a month after that. What we're working for, the funding that we're trying to do is get this to be the more places that promote it and have promo codes, so more people are sponsored, especially people who cannot afford that, even the $159. And also the fact that we're looking for the training to be that's what the funding is for, is to get more people trained in this, so that
get more people trained as allies liaisons, the ones that go from the ground and help families get access to the program.
Yes. And also then to have more people from various communities that are facilitating so that people feel more represented in our groups. Because right now, most likely what's going to happen is if people come into the groups, they're going to see mostly white faces, and that's unacceptable. So the whole facilitation process is that we're trying to have more diverse facilitators and participants. And
Mhm.
that's what we're looking at right now.
Wow. Ladies, this was so good. I can't begin to tell you how good this was. My wheels are just turning in so many ways. My wheels are turning. We'll talk offline. Um, so I think um
Let me just answer the one
Mhm.
last question, Sarita. We're looking at about 12 weeks of training. It includes going through the modules, answering the key observation exercises that are data-based. It includes shadowing existing groups, meeting and debriefing groups, and then some kind of a day or two of formal training. After 12 weeks, you're an allies liaison, and you're able to go to work as an allies liaison at a recovery center from your home. Again, you don't have to be in the streets. We want people in the streets, but you can also just be a facilitator of a group if that's what your heart tells you to do.
Mhm.
But that requires more, there's more for facilitators because it's the hardest part of the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm sure. Wow.
An
My
interview
wheels are just
process.
turning.
I
Oh
love
my
when the
gosh.
wheels turn, Sarita.
My wheels are turning. All right, so thank you guys so much.
Thank
It
you,
is
everyone.
12:53. Guys, if you really enjoyed today's workshop, there is a deeper dive on today's workshop. There's a positively impacting addiction by training and empowering the family with both Dominique and Kayla in a collaboration with Bichon Families, Friday, June 14th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. It is online. You can register for that and join us. That's going to be, if you enjoy today, you're going to enjoy that because that's a deeper dive into today's conversation. Um, thank you. Next slide. You can use the QR code and go there. Also, coming up next for April 18th, you guys know we do these Institute feature workshops where we feature our partners. We also have one coming up April 18th with Dr. Justin Henderson. This is a really good one. I know you hear self-care, you're sort of thinking about like they're all good. When you hear self-care, most people are thinking about, at home and that kind of stuff. But this one is really targeting if you're on the verge, if you are quiet quitting, do you know what that is? If you're on the verge of checking out and you're doing the least that you can do at your job because you're just overwhelmed and you're over it at work, this particular workshop is focusing on re-energizing you, giving you some tools to put in place where that doesn't have to be your story. You can actually begin to thrive again at work by setting some boundaries, by putting some various things, strategies in place. So that is Thursday, April 18th. We are still taking registrations for that. You can scan the QR code. Next slide. Thank you, thank you. This is our one with Dr. Cerisi. You guys know her. She's a friend of Be Strong Families as well. And she is addressing racial trauma in young children. That is an in-person. There is still time to do that. We have not turned it online yet. We're still hoping to get that we'll get a nice turnout for the in-person. So you don't want to miss that one. Go ahead and register. And if you're close in the area and you don't mind driving up or hopping on a quick plane, check us out Friday, May 17th. Go ahead and hit the QR code and you can register for that. And then in July, we have our webinar. This is our promo webinar for this particular workshop. This is Authentic Feminine Leadership. And the goal behind this is really, we think of leadership. Most times we think of leadership, we think about the stereotypical masculine ways of thinking and acting, right? Men have shaped everything for the most part. And in this workshop, we're going to explore the values and the benefits of bringing balance back, right? Where we're able to incorporate more feminine ways of thinking as well, so that everybody gets a chance to express themselves, and it isn't just based on the patriarch, I can't ever say that word. You know what I'm saying, right? The men's way of doing things and addressing things. So, thank you. Next slide. Remember our cafes. If you have not been to a cafe, you are missing out. There is a Dancing in the Rain coming up April 19th, May 3rd, and May 17th. You don't want to miss these these cafes, guys. It's a great way to unwind, relax, de-stress, be with your peers, and just have an overall good time. You can use the QR code and register today. Both Kayla and Dominique are now going to be added to our Speakers and Teachers Bureau. You can visit this page and you can contact them directly there. We did share their information in the chat. But if you're ever like, oh, I'm not sure, I can't remember, I lost their information, visit our Speakers and Teachers Bureau. Okay, you can find their information there. You can contact them directly. You can use the QR code and find them. Next. What are we talking about today? Recovery. Woo-hoo. Remember, we have these Recovering Together cafe in a box. So these are questions all centered around recovering together. You do not have to be trained to use these. You don't have to be trained on recovery cafes or cafes at all in order just to use the deck, because the questions are fantabulous. You can use those just to have a really good conversation. And then don't forget that our coloring book is out with the protective factors. It's a great resource as well. If you haven't gotten them, go ahead and jump on that. And then, yeah. If you have ever benefited from these wonderful webinars that we've been doing for quite some time now, and you'd like to donate to Be Strong Families, we love donations. It helps to make the world go round. It helps us to keep people working. It helps us to keep doing these great webinars and the work that we do with parent engagement. So yeah, be a blessing. Donate. All right. Thank you, guys. I enjoyed everybody today. Thank you so much, Kayla. Thank you so much, Dominique. You guys were amazing. Thank you. I just don't have the words. I have so many things. I'm calling you guys right after this. Okay. Okay, maybe not right after this, but before the day is over. All right. Thank you, all our tech guys today. And thank you guys for joining us, all of you guys who stayed around, all of our listeners, our audience. We love you guys. Thank you so much for making us